Thank you.
Let's dig deeper on all of this with Megan Hayes, former director of message planning under President Biden, and Mark Short, former White House legislative affairs director and chief of staff to the former vice president. So Jeffries looks like he's on an island that's shrinking in terms of support. Axios writing dozens of Democrats running for U.S. House seats across the country told Axios they either wouldn't vote for House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries as party leader or declined to commit to doing so. Here's the actual numbers. Would not vote 20, likely to not vote 5, declined to commit 57, would vote or likely to vote. That looks like 31. That's not a few or a handful. That's a serious problem.
I mean, it's a serious problem after the midterms in 26. I don't think this is something that Jeffries or the caucus should be worried about right now. They should be worried about getting these health care subsidies passed and getting the government back open. This is not something that Jeffries should be wasting his time dealing with.
To that end, we were talking about this in the break. John Thune has said to the Democrats, they'll give you a vote on the health care tax credits if you open the government. And I thought, oh, Democrats will never buy that, but you think that they should?
Well, I was surprised that they didn't. I think this is what they've said all along is what they wanted. And so Thune's basically offering them a vote, and they're saying that's not good enough. I think it shows the hypocrisy of the Democrat position, that they're not trying to open the government. They're actually trying to extend and make this a health care debate issue where, frankly, polling shows they're favored. But they're not really interested in getting the government back open. They're trying to use this as a political issue. So I am surprised that they didn't step in and take that as a victory.
You know, one person who said that the government shutdown is what Democrats want is Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania. And the Democrats may also be lining up against him, again from Axios. Top Democrats in Pennsylvania are maneuvering to run against Senator John Fetterman in a 2028 primary contest, threatening to tear the party apart in the biggest battleground state in the nation. He flipped the Republican seat in 2022, but has he become too reasonable for most Democrats?
I don't think it's reasonable. I think Democrats should be careful what they wish for. I think that there's a couple things going on here. Fetterman, I think people are very concerned about his health, and I think that it's smart to have a bench. It's smart to get these people ready to go if he chooses not to run for re-election in 28, which is a long time away from now. But I also do think that we can't split this. We can't split the state. We cannot have any divisiveness in that state. We need to keep that Senate seat, and we need to win in the presidential to even have the chance of having a Democrat become president in 28.
Look, I think the energy of the Democrat Party is with AOC and Bernie and Mamdani. And I think that's one of President Trump's gifts is he creates a foil on the other side that attracts the most radical elements of their party. But, you know, to your bigger conversation, John, you remember in 2018 during the midterms, a lot of Democrats went campaign saying they would not vote for Pelosi for Speaker.
Yeah.
Well, once she won in 2018, they all voted for her. And I think it's going to be the same dynamic with Jeffries. It's like if he wins the midterms, then they'll fall in line. And same way with Fetterman up in Pennsylvania. If they're winning, they're going to stick with what they have.
Which would be a great problem for the Democrats to have to win back the House.
Now, in terms of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, we don't know at this point if she is going to primary Chuck Schumer in 2028 or if she's going to throw her hat in the ring for president. But based on last night's town hall, if she hopes to achieve higher office, she might want to do a little more research. Listen here.
Rivers in rural areas were on fire because of corporations poisoning the people who lived in those areas. Poor middle-class communities getting poisoned and dumped on by corporations like Deloitte.
I mean, I may have missed it, but I've never known an accounting and tax firm to pollute a river. She also talked about the need for air that's drinkable.
Trump also says a lot of crazy things, and he's still won for president. I mean, I don't know what she was talking about. I didn't watch the debate the town hall last night, but I do think AOC does attract a large portion of the base. I don't necessarily agree that that is the entire Democratic Party. I think that people in the middle of the country are very moderate, and those are the places that we need to win in these frontline districts.
Ready for prime time?
Look, I think that she said a lot of things that are from her socialist positions that are not fact-checked. But I do think the energy of the Democrat Party is with her. And I think that that's going to be a challenge in the Democrat Party moving forward because it's not just her, it's also Bernie. It's also, as we see in New York, it's Mamdani, who right now is still favored. And you got basically an active socialist to be leading the biggest city in America.
Yeah, I thought Martha had a great line when she said socialism is great until you run out of other people's money.
Right.
That's right.
Right. Megan, Mark, great to see you. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.